Hello, Math 133 students. I received a question about how to do this problem, which is 4.1.17 in the MyStatLab. I have to tell you that I've changed this problem a bit, so it'll probably say 4.1 and then have a whole bunch of numbers afterwards because I cut out some of the later parts of this particular problem. Okay, so let me click on View an Example. And it says for the accompanying data sets, draw a scatter diagram by hand, compute the correlation coefficient, and determine whether there's a linear relationship between x and y. It's that last part that I've actually cut out, which involves that critical values table. You don't need it, so don't worry about it. So we're going to click here to view the data set. And I can see that I have a lovely data set here. So I'm going to open it in Excel. For no particular reason. I could use StatCrunch just as easily, but I'll use Excel. We have to use it on our project anyway. Let me make this a much larger font so you can actually see any of this. Oops. Okay, hold on. There they are. Okay, so we have these data points right here. Now for fun, I'm actually going to show you in this video how to use both Excel and your calculator. That way you can use whichever one's convenient for you for when you're doing this problem. So I'm going to start off with the calculator. Sure. So I want to find the scatter diagram and I want to find the correlation coefficient. So one thing I want to check first is if I go to my mode, and if for older calculators it won't be this big a screen, you'll have to scroll down and see. But what you're looking for is Stat Diagnostics. So you want that to be on. Do you see how there's a dark circle around it? It's called highlighting. So it's highlighted on the on, and that's what we want. So we want the on to be on. That way it will find the correlation coefficient for us. So you go press mode onto TID4, and you might have to scroll down. You might not see this much on the screen. The color calculators look like this, but the non-color calculators will have 2 screens worth. But you want to scroll down to Diagnostics, Stat Diagnostics on. And by the way, Stat Wizards should be on as well. Okay, so I'm going to go to Stat. I'm going to go to Edit, or number 1, Enter. I'm going to go up and press Clear, Enter. And I'm going to go over here and press Up, Clear, Enter. So that way my data sets are all cleared out and I can type in my new data set, which is 2, 4, 6, 6, 7. Make very sure that you are very careful when you type, because if you type just one number wrong, all heck breaks loose and everything else from that point will be wrong. Okay, so I want 2 things. I want a scatter diagram and I want the, hold on, let me just try to make this so you guys can see this better. There we go. So I want the scatter diagram and I want the correlation coefficient. There it is. There, I got what I wanted. I wanted you to be able to see the large screen there. So I press Stat and I press Calculate and I press one variable Stat. Oh no, sorry. Stat, Calculate, Linear Regression. Sorry, that's what we're doing. So we're trying to find that correlation coefficient. That'll be linreg. So number 4. And it'll say linreg, and then you say your x's are in L1, your y's are in L2. You want to have the frequency list blank. So it has a frequency list of L2 because I recently did a problem that involved a frequency list. So you want to make sure that that is cleared out and empty. So I press clear on it, and then I move down to calculate and press enter. And there we have it. The correlation coefficient is right there. It's the 0.98688. That's the correlation coefficient R. Now, to look at a scatter diagram of this, what I would do is I would go to y equals. I can see there's no equations in here, which is great. Then I want to go up and I want to turn plot 1 on, but I actually don't know what plot 1 is right now, so I'm going to actually go to a stat plot. So these plots, plot 1, plot 2, plot 3, that is actually the stat plot feature that you can see above the y equals button. So if I hit second y equals, I can see what plot number 1 is. So plot 1, if I hit number 1, there it is. That's what plot 1 would be. It's a scatter diagram with L1 and L2, and it has those kind of marks. If you have a color calculator, it'll actually give you a color option. And I want it to be on. So I'm going to press enter on the on. That way it'll turn it on. So it's going to make me a scatter diagram. L1 are my x's, L2 are my y's, and so on. Now, before I press graph, and if you want to go down here to change your colors, so be it. You can make them whatever color you like. I'll do green. Why not? So now, if I press graph right now, you can see I'm not seeing all the data points. That's a problem. So what I really want to do is zoom, hit the zoom button, and then number 9, down at the bottom, it says zoom stat. Now keep in mind with older calculators, you actually don't see as much in the menu, but it's there. There's a little down arrow and you can kind of scroll down to it and see. Although you actually don't have to scroll down. If you know what number it is and it's always number 9, then you can just hit 9. So you can hit zoom and then hit the number 9, it'll make it zoom stat. And that makes the window fit the data set. All right, so now if I look back at my scatter diagram options on my stat lab, I can choose which one of the scatter diagrams is appropriate. So I'd hit done. They would give me a multiple choice, right? So I'd have to choose that one, but I can see that it matches more or less what I have on my calculator right there. So then they want the correlation coefficient, and they're showing how to do it all by hand, but we don't really need it by hand because we don't need any of that stuff. All we need is to verify that we were correct with our 0.9868. And sure enough, there it is, 0.987. If you want to see how to do it by hand, there it goes. It's very lovely and complicated and not worth your time as a general rule, unless you're going on in math. So again, I got that from stat, calculate, number 4, so you can just hit the number 4, and then L1, L2, make sure your frequency list is blank and go down to calculate. And there it is. Now, to do this in Excel, it's actually really quick and easy. So let me show you that really quickly. So for Excel, I would just highlight, so I'm just holding down on my left mouse button and highlighting my data set. I click Insert, and I want to click a scatter diagram, which is this little icon right here. So I pick a scatter diagram, boom, there it is, even faster than the calculator, right? You can play around with how big the dots are and stuff like that, but lo and behold, that's your graph. For the correlation coefficient R, it's a command. It's equals correl, as in correlation. So correl parentheses, you tell it what the array is. So I can't remember if this one wants, well here, I can click on correl and it'll tell me how to do it. So array 1 is the range of cell values and a second range of cell values. So it actually doesn't matter to it which one's X and which one's Y. So I'm just going to hit, these are my X's, comma, these are my Y's, close my parentheses, enter. And there you go, 0.9869. So, and if you want to see more decimal places, they're there. To do that, I just double clicked. I move the cursor up between the B and the C. You can see it turns into that double pointed arrow, and I double click and it makes it as wide as it needs to be to fit the data points. So there you have it. So that's how to find R with Excel. Excel is actually faster than the calculator, but you don't get to use Excel on a test.